Hello everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk about HBAR and what our indicators here at the channel make of its recent price action. If you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter, where we put out regular updates about our risk indicators and more. So I want to start off by talking about our upside downside potential indicator. So this is our risk indicator here at the channel. It's a machine learning based model that's designed to calculate risk. So it goes from 5 to -5, with 5 being high risk, -5 low risk. And I'm showing you the price action of HBAR over time, color coded to the output of the UDPI. And you can see that over the history of HBAR, the UDPI has done a good job of identifying these high risk zones that have preceded these big moves to the downside, as well as these low risk zones that have preceded moves to the upside. And you probably noticed we're actually down at the green zone again, and not too dissimilar from where we were actually over the summer. And I think we can see this a little bit more clearly if I show just the raw output of the model across time. So this is the UDPI level here on the y-axis now, and then just across time here. And we can see is that we're actually at a very similar level to where we were over the summer, right? Kind of between -2 and -3 was where the UDPI kind of found a bottom back here in the summer. And that seems to be where we might be finding a bottom again here more recently. Now, does that mean we have to go right back to the upside immediately? No, there is still realistic downside potential. But from the model's perspective, there's a heck of a lot more realistic upside potential for HBAR right now than downside potential. So I'm showing you the long-term version of the UDPI. This cares about moves that play out over months to years, so longer-term time preference. So what it's basically saying is that in the coming months, it expects there to be a lot more realistic upside than downside potential for HBAR. So again, doesn't mean we have to go there immediately, but if I had to take a guess, I would suspect that right now is, in hindsight, going to look like more of an accumulation zone than something that precedes a bear market, for example. At least if historical trends are any indication, this is the kind of level you see before moves to the upside more often than moves to the downside. Now, not financial advice, you should make your own opinions, but that is my take on that. I also want to show the short-term version of the UDPI to show what it's saying. So this cares about movements that play out over days to weeks, so much shorter time preference. What we can see is that HBAR had realized some upside potential off of the bottom, and now we're actually cooling off again, where essentially HBAR seems to be accruing some more upside potential for the short term. So in the short term, HBAR is quite primed and ready. That if the rest of the market remains bullish, Bitcoin had an amazing day yesterday, pumping almost 15% in a single day. If that can continue, if that uptrend can continue, if bullish sentiment can re-enter the market, then I think HBAR could be in a really nice place to start realizing some of the short-term upside potential here. And then that would just be reflected then with some more slower realization of that kind of longer-term upside potential. I would expect in the short term you would shoot up the short-term upside potential more quickly, and then you might have to kind of cool off, move back up, cool off. You'll notice that tends to happen where you kind of move up, cool off, move up, cool off, move up, cool off. That's what I expect to happen again, where we might realize a bunch of upside potential, put in some nice short-term moves, had to cool off, consolidate for a while, then maybe move back up, all in the line of potentially starting to realize some of this longer-term upside potential. Now again, that's all predicated on the market remaining bullish and Bitcoin not just deciding to dump tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see. But if the rest of the market were to be bullish, I'd expect HBAR to have a nice setup right here to realize some upside potential. Let's look at another indicator we have. So this is our trend confidence indicator, or TCI. What this indicator is designed to do is basically evaluate the current trend that the price action is in, and then basically make a decision of how confident we should be in that current level. If we're in a downtrend and the TCI is negative in the red, that means we should be relatively confident of that downtrend, like we were here. If the TCI flips into the green zone and we start moving up, we can be relatively confident in that uptrend, and that's what happened throughout here. But then if we get a divergence, if the price is moving up, but the TCI is in the red zone, there's where we might want to be cautious about that upside, that uptrend, because then downside potential can easily follow. And that's actually what we saw coming off the all-time high here, where we were in an uptrend after this kind of big correction here, but the TCI was not convinced by that uptrend at all. You can tell that for the most part, we're just staying green with just barely popping our heads above zero, which is kind of this cutoff level between bullishness and bearishness before moving back down to the downside. And so that's how you can read this indicator, basically, that you evaluate, look at whatever trend we're in. If the TCI is confirming it, if it's green in an uptrend, then that's good news. If it's red in an uptrend, that's bad news. And then vice versa. If it flips, you know, like here, green during a downtrend, that's bullish, which suggests that upside is likely to follow. So if we look at what we've been doing more recently with the TCI, TCI has largely been kind of flipping, hanging out right around zero, more or less, during this part of the downtrend. So, you know, flip bullish as we're entering into a localized uptrend, flip bearish as we're popping off of it, flip bullish as we hop up into the uptrend, bearish as we flip down. Just kind of catching these really small localized trends, but not getting too excited about any of them, right? You know, we're not flipping up into these higher levels. You want to interpret this indicator as a continuum, right? It's about confidence. So the higher it is on this level, the more confident it is in this uptrend that we're in. And then if the lower it falls, the more confident it is in the downtrend, for example. So more or less kind of what it's been doing around here has been kind of a little bit cautious. It did catch this uptrend as we came out of here. So, you know, a foot bullish around here, stayed bullish till we kind of came down here. But now we're just kind of hanging out around zero. So we have just closed in the green. But I'd personally like to see us to get quite a bit higher on the TCI here before getting too confident that this uptrend, that this reversal of this uptrend is really diagnostic. Right now, I kind of see a lot of indecision in this indicator about what's going on. That is kind of hanging out around zero, meaning that it's not particularly bullish or bearish on HBAR right now. So essentially, you could see it going either way. So to wrap this up, I just want to talk a little bit about also just the price action of HBAR, just flipping over here to trading view and just looking at where we are. And one of the things I think is notable is that, you know, so far we've been in this pretty brutal downtrend for, you know, ever since, you know, back in November, middle of November, just kind of bouncing off this trend line more or less to the downside, putting in kind of lower lows, lower highs, lower low, lower high. But importantly, we might be seeing potentially a double bottom kind of here. You'll note that we did not put in a lower low on this most recent wick down, right? We actually caught support at basically the same level we caught support on this candle right here in late January. And that's a hopeful sign, right? That's bullish, because a downtrend would be characterized by lower lows and lower highs. We've now broken off of that lower low, at least for now. We have not done that. So what I'm personally going to be looking for, just from a purely technical perspective on HBAR, is can we start kind of convincingly breaking out of this downtrend here? You know, I'm not going to necessarily see a break above this trend line as being especially diagnostic. These trend lines are always a little bit questionable, just so they're very subjective in how exactly you draw them. But certainly that's what I'd be looking for, is for price to really start deviating from this downtrend we've been in. And that would give me hope then that we might be breaking out of this downtrend and maybe can then start moving back up to the upside. Now, we're going to have to wait and see what happens with that, of course, but that's what I'm going to be, one of the things I'm going to be watching for with HBAR. You know, we put in this nice 10% move to the upside. Can we continue that moving forward? You know, we are down on the day here after that impressive pump, but can we then put in some reversals back to the upside? And especially, can we hold this level? Or whatever bottom we might have to realize after this, can it be higher than these levels? Because we can put in a higher low. That's the first step to establishing an uptrend, right? A higher low, hopefully leading into a higher high, higher low, etc., moving back up to the upside. So I think when we put all the data together, right, from the UDPI, from the TCI, and just looking at price action, I think where we stand right now is kind of in the long term, there's reason to be optimistic that kind of this precipitous move from all-time highs that HBAR has done, it's, you know, the UDPI has been reflecting that's been accruing upside potential as it's been correcting, right? It's really kind of corrected far off that all-time high. It's gotten a lot lower in its risk than it was back up here, which then means that if it can start moving back to the upside, it has a lot of upside potential to realize before it might start getting exhausted, like it did back here or like it did back here before then. And so the longer term, in the kind of coming months, that's a hopeful sign. And if the market can remain bullish, then I think that very well could happen. And the short term, I think there's a lot more indecision, right? We saw on the short term UDPI that there is quite a bit of upside potential that's realistic in the short term, but there is downside potential that's possible. And on the TCI, we see it hovering right around that kind of critical level, right? That kind of critical point to be watching. And so if we can break decisively above that critical point, that's going to be quite bullish in my opinion, and that might suggest that a more protracted uptrend could follow. So that's what I think is just kind of all eyes on HBAR right now. I think it's too early to call it as being the bottom necessarily, but I do think that there's a lot of hopeful signs that this could be the bottom right? I think that we're getting to a point where we're starting to show some signs of breaking this oppressive downtrend, and especially from the TCI's perspective being so, the TCI is not convinced we're in a downtrend anymore. It's really kind of undecided. And so I think that could be a great spot for HBAR to potentially stage a move to the upside. So not financial advice, but just what I'm thinking. All right, if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter. And remember, with UDPI and the TCI, we're all going to make it.